In the cold, unyielding darkness of space, a small, battered spacecraft drifted silently. Its hull, marred by countless scars of cosmic battles, housed a desperate fugitive Princess Leora of the planet Azurus and her young daughter, Ilera. Leora, once a revered figure in her own right, with flowing silver hair and eyes that mimicked the Azurian twin moons, was now a shadow of her former self. She held Ilera close, the child's soft, azure-tinted curls damp against her mother's chest. They were alone, fugitives on the run from a brutal regime that had overthrown her family. As the onboard systems flickered dimly, Leora initiated a distress signal, her fingers trembling over the ancient controls. She whispered softly to Ilera, "We are going to a place called Earth, my love. A place where we might finally be safe." The message was simple and transmitted on an open channel, a desperate gamble. "To any who can hear this, my name is Princess Leora of Azurus. I seek refuge for myself and my daughter. I am prepared to offer anything, even my status as a concubine, in exchange for protection. Please help us." The signal stretched out into the void, crossing into human territories. It was picked up by a retired veteran of Earth's interstellar forces, James McKinley, who now spent his days on a small farm in rural Montana, far removed from the battles that had once defined his life. James sat in his modest living room when the signal disrupted the quiet hum of an old radio he'd tinkered with as a hobby. The voice, unmistakably alien yet underscored with an urgent humanity, caught him off guard. He adjusted the settings, ensuring it wasn't just a figment of his imagination caused by too many years in deep space. Deciding quickly, James responded, his voice resolute yet tinged with curiosity. "This is James McKinley on Earth. I received your message. Can you make it to these coordinates?" He transmitted the coordinates of his farm. Back on the spacecraft, Leora let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Hope, fragile and flickering, ignited within her. She input the coordinates into the ship's faltering navigation system, whispering a prayer to the ancient deities of Azurus that they might make it safely. The journey to Earth was fraught with tension. Every shudder of the spacecraft, every whine of the overtaxed engines, tested Leora's resolve. But the thought of Ilera, her innocent face pressed against the viewport, watching the stars blur into streaks of light as they entered the Earth's atmosphere, kept her determination fiery and alive. They landed in a field shadowed by the Rocky Mountains, just as dawn painted the sky with strokes of pink and gold. The hatch opened with a hiss, and Leora stepped out, Ilera clinging to her side. Her heart pounded as she saw a figure approaching, tall, rugged man whose presence seemed as steady as the mountains themselves. James approached slowly, his eyes taking in the sight of the alien princess and her child. He extended a hand, his voice gentle. "Welcome to Earth, Leora. You and your daughter are safe here." Leora's relief was palpable as she took his hand, her other arm securely around Ilera. "Thank you, James McKinley. I am in your debt." As they walked towards the farmhouse, the sun rose fully over the horizon, casting light on the new world before them. Leora knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Yet, as she watched Ilera's eyes widen in wonder at the sight of their new home, she felt a stirring of hope. Perhaps, on this quiet, unassuming planet, they could find the safety and peace they so desperately sought. Under the vast expanse of Montana's sky, Leora and Ilera began to adapt to their new environment. James introduced them to the simple routines of farm life, which was a stark contrast to the high-tech existence they had known on Azurus. Despite the tranquility, Leora's mind often wandered to the stars, a constant reminder of the life they had escaped. James, seeing Leora's distant gazes and Ilera's fascination with the Earth's flora and fauna, decided to bridge their worlds with something familiar yet new. He converted an old barn into a makeshift workshop and lab, where he began teaching Ilera about Earth's technology and Leora about human history and culture. The barn became a sanctuary where Leora could connect with her own vast knowledge, bringing a piece of Azurus to their earthly refuge. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the golden fields, Leora shared with James a piece of Azurian technology, a small, luminescent orb that projected holographic data. Fascinated, James watched as star maps and ancient Azurian archives filled the room, a dance of light and shadow playing across their odd faces. "This is our history, our knowledge," Leora explained, her voice a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I brought it with us because I want Alara to know where she comes from, who she is." The technology not only brought Leora and James closer as they shared knowledge and stories, but also piqued the interest of Alara, who began to understand her heritage. Under her mother's guidance, she learned to manipulate the holograms, her tiny fingers tracing the constellations of her home sky. Meanwhile, James started to notice that despite their safety, Leora would often scan the night sky with a hint of fear. She confided in him that the regime that had pursued them might still be searching, their sensors sweeping the cosmos for any trace of her and her daughter. Realizing the gravity of their situation, James upgraded the farm's security systems, integrating Earth technology with Azurian modifications provided by Leora. The farm became a fortress, albeit one hidden not by walls, but by stealth technology that made it invisible to prying eyes from afar. As the weeks turned into months, Leora found solace in her new life. Yet the weight of her crown, invisible and intangible, never left her. She trained Alara not just in the culture of their ancestors, but in the art of leadership and resilience, preparing her for any eventuality. One crisp, clear night, as they watched the stars through an old telescope, Alara pointed to a faint light moving differently from the stars. Leora's heart skipped a beat as she tracked the light, her instincts telling her it was not a satellite but something else. She grabbed James's arm, a silent alarm in her eyes. "They might have found us," she whispered, a storm of worry brewing behind her calm exterior. Together, they prepared for what might come, their peaceful interlude on Earth possibly coming to an end, as the light in the sky drew closer, bringing with it the shadows of their past. The light in the night sky, once a mere pinprick against the vast tapestry of the cosmos, grew steadily, manifesting as a sleek, dark vessel that breached the Earth's atmosphere with a silence that belied its ominous intent. Leora recognized the design. It was a scout ship from the regime, unmistakable with its predatory contours and the emblem of the usurper that glowed malevolently on its hull. James tightened the security measures around the farm, activating the cloaking fields Leora had helped enhance. The farm, now just a whisper in the physical realm, became nearly undetectable, masked beneath layers of light-bending technology and electromagnetic shielding. Inside the house, tension twisted the air as Leora, James, and Alara gathered around the kitchen table, cluttered with maps and various devices. Leora's hands were steady as she pointed at the screen displaying the ship's trajectory. "They are scanning the area, but they haven't detected us yet," she said, her voice a low murmur. "Our technology is holding, for now." James nodded, his mind racing through various contingency plans. "We need to prepare for the worst. If they land and start a ground search, we'll have to consider evacuating." Alara, picking up on the gravity of the situation, clutched her mother's hand. "Mom, can they take us back?" Her voice was small, tinged with fear. Leora knelt beside her, her eyes reassuring. "We won't let that happen. We have protections here, and we have James. We're safe as long as we're careful and smart." As they strategized, the night grew deeper, the stars watching silently overhead. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by the faint sound of an engine, a different timbre than the scout ships, more rough and human. Through the window, the headlights of a truck pierced the night as it made its way toward the farmhouse. James peered through his binoculars, his body tense. "It's Tom," he said, recognizing his neighbor's old Ford. "What is he doing here at this hour?" Leora's gaze hardened. "Does he know about us, about where we come from?" "Not in detail. He knows I have guests who are laying low. That's all." James went out to meet Tom, his steps quick and quiet. Tom, a rugged man in his late 50s, climbed out of his truck, his face etched with concern. "James, you folks need to see this," he said, holding up his phone. It showed a local news alert about mysterious lights and an unknown aircraft seen over the Rockies. "It's buzzing all over the county. People are talking about government cover-ups and alien sightings." Thanking Tom, James returned inside, his face grave. "The sighting has already hit the news. It's going to get harder to keep things quiet. Leora looked toward Alara, her resolve firming. We may need to use the orb to communicate with my allies. If my brother survived the coup, he might be able to send help. They decided it was time to reach out. In the dead of night, under the cover of their cloaked sanctuary, Leora activated the orb, sending a coded message pulsing deep into space, aimed at the hidden pockets of resistance that might still hold loyalty to her fallen house. As they waited for a response, the scout ship continued its silent, ominous hover over the area, a stark reminder of the threat that loomed over their fragile peace. With each passing hour, Leora's past drew closer, threatening to collide with her present-day collision that could shatter the sanctuary they had so carefully built on this distant, blue planet. The coded message sent into the void remained unanswered as dawn crept over the horizon. Leora, James, and Alara remained vigilant, monitoring both the skies and the local news for any indication of a shift in their precarious situation. The scout ship had ceased its visible operations, likely cloaking itself, which did nothing to alleviate the tension gripping the farmhouse. Inside the workshop, James and Leora worked tirelessly to bolster their defenses. Leora introduced James to a series of Azurian defensive protocols, complex algorithms designed to interfere with enemy sensors. They integrated these protocols into the farm's existing systems, creating a patchwork of human and alien technology that was uniquely robust. Meanwhile, Alara, under her mother's guidance, began to take a more active role. Her ability to learn and adapt to both Earth and Azurian technologies proved invaluable. She helped recalibrate the sensors to detect a wider range of frequencies, potentially giving them an early warning should the scout ship reemerge. As they worked, the air filled with the crackle of intercepted transmissions. They pieced together a troubling picture. The scout ship was not alone. It was a vanguard, a harbinger of a larger force poised just beyond the moon. The regime was not taking any chances. Leora was too important, her lineage too threatening to their usurped power. Their focus was suddenly interrupted by a faint reply to Leora's message, a whisper across the cosmos. It was fragmented, distorted by the vast distances and the regime's attempts to jam communications. But one thing was clear: the resistance was alive, and her brother was leading it. Fueled by this news, Leora's spirit, which had been shadowed by worry, reignited with a fierce hope. "We are not alone," she declared, her voice resolute. "My brother is coming. We just need to hold out until then." James, while heartened by the news, remained pragmatic. "We should prepare for the possibility of an encounter. If they land, we might have to fight or flee." With new urgency, they prepared a contingency plan. James pulled out old maps and outlined escape routes, while Leora and Alara packed a small cache of essentials and Azurian artifacts. Everything that could be done was being done to ensure their readiness for whatever might come. The day slipped into evening, and the farm became a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. James trained Alara in the use of some basic defensive tools, non-lethal earth weaponry adapted to her small hands. Leora, meanwhile, set up a makeshift command center in the living room, her eyes rarely straying from the screens displaying satellite feeds and sensor data. As night deepened, a subtle change in the atmospheric pressure signaled the return of the scout ship. It appeared suddenly, as if materializing out of the very air, its cloaking technology failing for a moment under the strain of the atmospheric reentry. The farm's defenses sprang to life, the cloaking field shimmering visibly for a moment before stabilizing. A silent battle of technology ensued, invisible waves clashing high above the tranquil farm. Leora stood at the forefront, her figure outlined against the backlit windows, her face set in determination. Beside her, James and Alara stood ready, a family united not by blood but by a shared commitment to protect their haven. The night wore on, each passing minute stretching into what felt like an eternity. The scout ship hovered, its intentions unreadable, the standoff a silent testament to the clash of wills between a fallen princess and a far-reaching regime. As the standoff persisted, the scout ship made a move, descending slightly, its dark silhouette cutting a stark contrast against the starlit sky. Its presence was an oppressive weight, its silence a loud declaration of the threat it posed. James monitored the ship's every adjustment, prepared to enact any of their planned contingencies at a moment's notice. Leora, standing by the window, her gaze fixed on the hovering menace, communicated quietly with the resistance through the orb. The connection was precarious, distorted by both distance and deliberate interference, but it was enough to coordinate their next steps. Her brother, though far, managed to convey a crucial message. They were launching a diversionary assault on a regime stronghold, hoping to draw some forces away from Earth. This news brought a new layer of urgency to their preparations. Leora turned from the orb, her face etched with resolve, and relayed the plan to James and Alara. "We have a window of opportunity," she explained. "When the regime's attention is divided, we might have a chance to escape or to disable the scout ship permanently." Alara, absorbing every word, nodded solemnly. She had grown much in these few weeks, her childhood innocence tempered by the necessity of survival. She was ready to play her part, a young but determined member of their small but resilient team. James, adjusting the settings on a makeshift control panel, prepared their most potent technological weapon, an EMP device, modified to specifically target Azurian tech without disrupting their own systems. "This is still a gamble," he cautioned, his voice low, "but it's the best shot we have." As they finalized their preparations, the scout ship began a slow, methodical descent toward the farm, its intentions becoming ominously clear. It was now or never. With a deep breath, Leora gave the nod, and James activated the EMP. A pulse of electromagnetic energy surged through the night, invisible yet potent. The farm remained dark and silent, shielded by its hybrid tech, while the scout ship stuttered in its descent, caught off guard by the sudden attack. The ship managed to stabilize, its systems resilient but not invulnerable. It hovered, damaged but still operational, a testament to the regime's technological prowess. But the delay bought them precious time minutes during which the Resistance's assault could be drawing forces away. Seizing the moment, Leora directed their next actions with a commander's acuity. "Alara, help James with the drones. We're going to give them something else to think about." Together, they launched a series of small, cloaked drones, programmed to mimic Azurian energy signatures, drawing the scout ship's attention away from the farmhouse. The drones darted through the night sky, leading the crippled scout ship on a wild chase across the Montana skies, away from their hidden sanctuary. Meanwhile, Leora continued to communicate with her brother, updating him on their situation and receiving real-time updates on the Resistance's progress. As the night progressed, the Resistance's efforts began to show signs of success. Reports of chaos and confusion within the regime's ranks filtered through, their forces scrambling to respond to the unexpected attack on their stronghold. In the farmhouse, amidst the technological orchestra of their survival, a bond forged by shared peril and a common cause grew ever stronger. James, Leora, and Alara watched the night unfold, each moment stretching into infinity, each action a critical point in their delicate dance of defiance against the regime. The scout ship, deceived and distracted, finally withdrew, its sensors confused by the multitude of false targets. As it retreated into the night, the first hints of dawn began to color the horizon, the darkness giving way to a tentative light. In that light, Leora, James, and Alara found a moment of respite, a brief pause in their relentless vigilance. They had survived the night, their home still a secret, their lives still their own. But the battle was far from over, and the dawn was more a promise of continued struggle than a guarantee of peace. The regime would not give up easily, and the resistance was still far away. Yet, in the quiet of the early morning, hope was as palpable as the light that grew stronger with each passing minute. As the light of dawn strengthened, washing over the landscape with hues of gold and pale blue, Leora, James, and Alara stood together, their faces etched with fatigue yet lined with an undeniable resilience. The scout ship's retreat was not just a temporary reprieve, but a signal of their first significant victory. However, the battle's toll was evident in their weary postures and vigilant eyes. Leora turned to James, her expression one of both gratitude and determination. "Your quick thinking saved us," she acknowledged softly, her hand resting briefly on his arm. James merely nodded, his gaze lingering on the horizon where the scout ship had disappeared, knowing well the reprieve might be short-lived. We must use this time wisely, Leora continued, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. The regime will eventually regroup and return, possibly in greater numbers. Alara, standing close to her mother, looked up with a newfound seriousness in her eyes. "What do we do next?" she asked, her youth overshadowed by the gravity of their situation. "We prepare," Leora answered, turning her gaze to the mountains that stood resilient in the distance. "We build our defenses, strengthen our alliances, and most importantly, we reach out to more who might stand with us." James, inspired by their courage and undying spirit, agreed. "I'll contact some old friends from the forces. There are those who dislike how things are run, who value justice and peace. They might be willing to lend us support." As they discussed their strategies, a new communication came through the Orblior's brother, finally breaking through the regime's jamming frequencies. His hologram flickered to life in the middle of the room, a spectral image that brought both comfort and urgency. "Leora, we've struck a significant blow against the regime's outpost. It's caused chaos among their ranks, giving us a precious window to escalate our efforts," he reported, his voice crackling with static but his resolve clear. "Then we must act swiftly," Leora replied, her tone imbued with the regal authority of her former station. "Gather all who remain loyal. We'll need every available hand to resist the next wave, which will undoubtedly be stronger." Her brother nodded, his image shimmering. "I'll do what I can from here. Stay safe, sister." As his image faded, a sense of solemnity settled over the trio. They were not just fighting for survival now, but were part of a larger resistance, a fight spanning the stars themselves. The days that followed were a blur of activity. James reached out to his contacts, finding more support than he'd expected. Veterans disillusioned by the regime's actions and newcomers eager to prove their worth joined their cause, each bringing their own skills and resources. Leora and Alara, meanwhile, worked to integrate more of Azurus's technologies into the farm's defenses, creating a fortress that was a melding of Earth and alien ingenuity. Alara, quick to learn and eager to contribute, found herself at the heart of their efforts, her dual heritage making her a symbol of the unity and strength that characterized their growing resistance. One evening, as they watched the sun set, casting long shadows over the fields now dotted with tents and makeshift workshops, Leora took a moment to reflect on their journey. Beside her, James and Alara stood watching the horizon, their faces lit by the last light of day. "This is just the beginning," Leora murmured, more to herself than to the others. "But whatever comes, we face it together." As night fell, the farm a beacon of resistance thrummed with life and purpose. Lights twinkled in the dark, not just stars but the lights of a community united under a common cause, ready to stand against the darkness, no matter how deep it might be. Here, on this small earth farm, the seeds of a revolution were being sown, roots entangling below, branches reaching towards the stars.